The late Clive Churchill, a freakish rugby league footballer of small stature and giant heart, must have been a walk-up start, with his 34 test matches and 99 consecutive rep games. A great coach as well with his beloved South Sydney. The little master, his tag, tells it all. Ray Bartz is still in sport, but on a different side of things these days. One of the 2 soccer players to be recognised, and no wonder.
We're absolutely thrilled to bits, I am.
And good for the sport too, of course. I know soccer's been a lot of your life, hasn't it?
Well, it's been all my life, really, and I think, I really, even though I'm there, I guess I'm a figure that's really representing soccer, and I'm, feel very proud, not only for myself, but also for the game as well, it's a great honour. I really am thrilled.
It was a great career that unfortunately ended rather sadly.
Well, it sort of ended abruptly, I was sort of, I would like to think, when a player's at 27, you're sort of reaching your prime. We qualified for the 74 World Cup, which we're only 2 weeks away from going to Germany, and we had 2 lead-up games against Uruguay, and the second one, unfortunately, I copped a nasty injury, which ended my career.
Regrets?
Well, no regrets, really. Well, yes and no. I had a great time. I enjoyed every minute of my career. Very disappointing to miss out in the World Cup finals, but looking back on it, I wouldn't change 1 minute of it, no.
Another local of enormous talent, but less known perhaps, is water skier Bruce Coburn.
Water skiing is only considered a very minor sport, so I was very thrilled that they recognised my sport for including me in there.
Quite a dinner down there and quite a few notable sporting people.
Oh, it was very good. There's some very famous people down there.
Tell us about your record now.
Well, I've won 26 Australian titles over a period of about 10 years and 1 gold in world titles and 2 silvers.
Certainly a marvellous record.
Oh, I'm quite happy with it.
Mark Richards is the modern legend in Surf City, and on a broader scale worldwide, where he is perhaps even more acclaimed than he is at home. Richards is still enjoying success and has racked up 4 world titles, an effort that may never be matched, let alone beaten. And as with the others just named, his success is carried proudly and modestly. Fine citizens of a fine city.
Today's match at the Tube Makers Oval in Newcastle was the 3rd on the touring Surrey youth side's 4-week tour of Australia. They arrived in Sydney on Tuesday and since that time have recorded 2 losses, one against Sydney side Sutherland and the other against Gosford. The side is a mix of players from schools in Surrey and club Colt players. This morning, batting first, the tourists got off to a shaky start. Up against opening pacemen Richard Finlay and David Lewis, they lost quick wickets. Finlay put in an impressive performance and ended with the figures of 6 wickets for just 36 runs. Despite this strong performance, Surrey managed to put together a reasonable total of 129. A short time ago though, Newcastle were headed for victory. With more than 20 overs remaining and 8 wickets in hand, the locals needed just 28 runs. Andrew Rigby was leading the charge with the bat with an unbeaten half-century. In what may have at first been mistaken as a show of strength by Newcastle bikers, about 300 leather-clad riders gathered at Mayfield West at the corner of Industrial Drive and Pacific Highway this morning. A closer look revealed the presence of many articles not often associated with the bikie image. There were bags of toys of all descriptions and supplies of food. There were even several Santa Clauses. The local motorcycle riders were making their annual donation of Christmas gifts and food to the needy. The bikers took a slow ride through Newcastle to Civic Park, where they presented the goods to the Salvation Army for their Christmas appeal. This year is the 7th time the combined motorcycle riders of Newcastle have donated toys and food to the needy. According to spokesman John Van Eden, the day is important in helping the public see another side of motorcycle riders than the big bad biker image.
It's the absolute contrast, the Salvation Army, the tambourine banging sort of people, as opposed to the big bad bikies of the world. We're not all that bad. We're all human beings. We all hold jobs, and so are the Salvation Army. It's just a different coat of colours, as they say.
And a good cause as well.
Well, it's Christmas. We're trying to get the Christmas spirit across to everybody.
It was certainly an ideal day and pleasant location for the Hunter Orchestra's final performance in their successful first year. The sunshine over Newcastle held on for the concert, and thousands of people lined the park's natural amphitheatre near the bogey hole. It was a concert for everyone. The champagne set and the director's chair set were there, as were lots of families and just about anyone interested in seeing this different and new performance by an orchestra in the Hunter. If you weren't one of the lucky ones who were given chairs, then the grassy slopes of the park were the seating. The orchestra was joined by the Cahibra Brass Band, the Newcastle University Choir and even the Army for the occasion, and all up nearly 100 musicians were involved. It was a performance of popular classical music, including Copland's Fanfare for the Common Man, Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture and Wagner's Flying Dutchman. Orchestra stalwarts are hopeful that there will be many more concerts like this one when the orchestra resumes in the new year. The blind cyclists were taking part in the first blind tandem pursuit races to be held at the velodrome. 3 teams entered in each. The front man had good vision, but the rear cyclist had less than 10% vision. In Europe and the United States, blind tandem events have really taken off and are now in the Masters Games, the Olympics for the over 35s. Out here in Australia, the sport is just kicking off. There are around 18 competitors Australia-wide. There are only 2 blind riders in New South Wales, John Ansell and Ched Towns. Both competed yesterday at the velodrome.
Come round to get the bell lap.
Newcastle had lost last year's final of this competition to the ACT and had been bundled out the year before by this team, Northwest, in the quarters. Yesterday's quarter-final gave our boys the opportunity to put things right. Northwest in the red won the toss and sent the locals into bat, and after 50 overs Newcastle were 8 for 171, thanks in no small part to Neil Budden, who hit 22 in the last over. In fact, 37 runs were scored in the final 2. Given the ball, Newcastle displayed their superiority. Northwest were all out for 129, with spinner David Palmer the best with 3 for 37, Budden got 2 for 24, and vice-captain Jim Hogg finished with 2 for 23.
It was at these old yards opposite the Maitland Hospital that the final sale in nearly 100 years of operation took place last week. But today, sellers, stock and buyers transported themselves to the new regional sale yards. Situated just outside Rutherford, the $1 million complex was opened today by the Mayor of Maitland, Alderman Pat Hughes. Alderman Hughes says that the design and functioning of the new yards far surpass that of the old.
The old yards were around for well over 100 years, and I would say this design and these sale yards should be around at least as long.
There's been some criticism from locals that the new yards have been built in the wrong place, a suggestion which is disputed by the Maitland City Council.
This will prove incorrect. I am sure the ground has been built up, and according to all our engineering experts, it should prove as successful in this locality as it would be on any other site that could have been chosen in the region.
We would hope that our station would be different from the norm. We don't want to have something similar to what's already existing. That's been clearly spelled out by the people on our board. and I wholeheartedly endorse that sentiment. So we're hoping that, well, certainly it'll be much different from what's available here in Newcastle. There may be some similarity to some of the FM radio stations in Sydney, but we hope we'll be different and better than all of them.
Newcastle has had a frequency modulation or FM radio station since 1978, when the university began operating 2NUR FM with a community licence. That has proved to local listeners the technical superiority of the band over the normal broadcast stations. Ever since, there's been talk of a commercial licence, with now 4 major groups vying for the opportunity. Applications will be called in January, but just when will a commercial FM station be operating here?
The submissions will be called in January, and he'll give 2 months for the submissions to be completed and acknowledged with the Broadcasting Tribunal, and after that the Tribunal will sit, say 2 or 3 months after that February date, and the successful applicant should be announced very shortly after that.
Well, when do you think that the successful applicant, whoever that might be, will actually be broadcasting to the people of this region?
Well, let's assume that the successful applicant is announced around June. I would say sometime between 6 and 12 months after that date, a commercial FM radio station in Newcastle should be broadcasting.
The draft budget sets out Newcastle's rate increases for next year. The City Administrator, Colin Saunders, adopted a recommended increase of only 6%, 2% below that allowable. Rate notices will also be sent out earlier next year. It's anticipated they'll be mailed round the 3rd of next month.
Other changes next year affect the method of payment. In addition to post offices, provisions are being made for rates to be settled at banks.
Overall, the budget sets out an estimated expenditure in excess of $54 million, including a tourism budget of $222,000. This will be offset by an income of more than $26.8 million from rates, the balance to be derived from a number of sources. Next year, the administration will also take the first steps towards adopting a 10-year budget plan. The administration has engaged the services of management consultants who will introduce a computerised system for long-term budgeting. Meanwhile, Lake Macquarie Council last night adopted a rate increase of 8% for 1986, excluding rural rates. The council is applying to the Minister for Local Government, Kevin Stewart, to increase the rural rate from 50% to 75% of the general rate. Residents of Lake Macquarie will also be able to pay their rates at local banks next year. The RSPCA's headquarters at Wallsend has the facilities to keep up to 140 dogs, but during the Christmas holiday period, the kennels are soon filled.
People going away on holidays and they want to put the dogs in. It's a common thing nearly every year now. Because they're going on holidays, they put a dog in and get another dog out in January, February.
If owners can't be found, staff are forced to undertake the distressing task of selecting dogs to be put down. It's a situation that angers the resident regional inspector, John Carter.
Another problem at Christmas time is that people make arrangements with people to board their dogs or look after their dogs, and we find that they often lock them in a house somewhere and leave them with what they reckon plenty of food and water for 3 or 4 days. We get a call in a couple of days' time over Christmas. We go out and we find dogs chewing the places there, knocked over their water, and one house comes readily to mind. It practically caught fire last year because the dog was chewing the electrical work when we got him out.
What sort of fine can be incurred for abandoning an animal?
If they go off at holidays and leave their dogs tied up, or in houses like I've just mentioned there, the fine can be for abandonment, $1,000.
The message from the RSPCA is clear. If you're going away on holidays, make sure your animal is adequately kennelled. If not, like this little fellow, it may have only 1 week left to live.
Preparations are well in hand for this year's Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race. 9 local boats are taking part, and there's a lot of preparation yet to be done. We look at that preparation and the safety angle tonight in the news.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
The Nurses Association has long maintained that for them the real issues in the public hospital system are pay and conditions. President of the Royal Newcastle Hospital branch, Viv Allenson, told the nurses meeting at Newmet today that the Royal has just received its 1986 budget, which includes further funding cuts. Nurses passed a resolution warning the hospital executive that if there are any nursing staff cuts or a staff freeze, immediate industrial action will be considered. Premier Rand's plan to send student nurses back to work drew angry reactions at the meeting, and nurses voted to send the Premier a telex opposing any move of nurse education from the colleges. The other main topic of discussion was the findings of a working party reviewing the resources of the hospital. The working party, which includes nurses, was set up after a widespread criticism of a hospital review ordered by the Health Minister Ron Newlock. That review concluded that the Royal has enough staff and money, and that its problems are largely of its own making. According to Viv Allenson, the working party report tells a very different story, saying nurses have been as efficient as they could be.
And the working party endorsed everything that nursing administration had been doing to alleviate the staffing problems. So they were very supportive and in effect negated what the original review team had proposed.
Nevertheless, you need more nursing staff, don't you?
Yes, we believe we do, and it was recognised that the intensive care unit in particular did need an increase in their staffing establishment.
Hello, I'm Melinda Smith. This week, the Gosford Council gave the go-ahead for a $35 million redevelopment project here in Terrigal. In January, the transformation of Hotel Florida will begin, making it the grandest hotel tourist attraction on the Central Coast.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
The riders who dominated the scene in past years, like the late Billy Sanders, Gary Galini and Phil Byrne, are all missing this year, opening up the way for the bright crop of youngsters to show their talents. 18 riders, handicapped by the control board, will contest the championship under the new format of heat semi-finals and sudden death final, all with 6 abreast starts. Locals Chris Watson and Stephen Davies and Tari's Brian Nixon are all tipped to shine, as is Sydney rider Michael Poole, who's just completed 2 full seasons in the British League. Others tipped to have chances are Ray Palmer, Brett Saunders and Dave Mills, as they've shown great form on the track in recent weeks. Tomorrow night's program includes Super Sedan, with some spectacular clashes expected between Bob Brewer and Grand National champ Johnny Pine. Formula 500s and sidecars will also add interest.
Across the line. Wilmot down to the line, he's first. Oh, Watson jammed onto the wall. Nixon was second, Watson was third, then came...
The sell-off and leaseback will take place to free up some capital, about $13 million worth to be exact. The Shoeys chain is owned by the Owens family of Newcastle, and according to the managing director, Richard Owens, the company has grown by 43% in terms of sales during its lifetime. At present, there are 38 outlets throughout New South Wales, and the company is still expanding. The cost of fitting out the stores with equipment such as refrigeration is high. By selling some of its properties and then leasing them back, money is freed up for expansion. It's not known at this stage which stores will be sold, though Mr Owens says store users will not be affected in any way. At present, Shoeys has annual sales totalling about $180 million.